hide-and-seek scene does not end with Peter finding 2019 Samara Weaving in a bloody white dress carrying a shotgun.
Dad?
And this whole Peter's parents are spies subplot reminds me of this really fun storyline in the early 90s in The Amazing Spider-Man, where Peter's parents show back up after having been missing all his life, and they end up not actually being his parents, and the whole thing is a ruse set up by the Chameleon. But this also reminds me we've never gotten the goddamn Chameleon, Spider-Man's first major villain, as an antagonist in any of these Spider-Man films. And yeah, he's gonna be in that Kraven the Hunter movie, but that doesn't count. You know it, Sony. The shot makes sense because we want to see little Peter eavesdropping, but where did he come from? That corner behind the TV? How and when would he have snuck back there? This Peter placement suggests he at some point ran across this open hallway to get behind the TV and none of the adults noticed. And I'm just curious why they didn't do the typical child is halfway down the dark staircase listening to the adults downstairs who are arguing cliche and get on with it.
Doesn't like crust on his sandwiches. He likes to sleep with a little light on at night.
Needy kids.
Be good.
Dad's last words to little Peter are, "Be good," and you do not even know how much trauma that would cause a child. This movie skips that and goes straight to the spider bite, but imagine if it had spun the guilt of not living up to Dad's last words into his motivation for being Spider-Man. That could have been cool. Instead, it just dumps his motivation all on the once again dead Uncle Ben.
You wanna keep that skateboard?
Peter Parker somehow can't help but skateboard inside the high school hallways, which seems stupidly impulsive and selfish. It's worth pointing out that Peter Parker stops here to take Gwen's picture without her permission, but when we made a stupid horny wishful lap dance joke about this moment, everybody lost their minds. Mind you, they've only rebooted this franchise a couple times, but I don't know why they always have to start back at high school Peter. We really need to see his origin again, and he doesn't even meet Gwen in the comics till college. And these two look like they're in their mid-20s. Gwen even has a college-level intern job at Oscorp. Why is this high school?
I'm making spaghetti and meatballs tonight.
Spaghetti again? Don't stretch yourself so hard, Aunt May. I feel bad you spent so much time letting the water do all the work.
I fell. Skating.
Being this bad at lying. Wasting a perfectly good steak by adhering to an outdated idea that cold steaks help heal black eyes and other wounds more quickly by drawing out the bad items in the black eye, when in reality it was just cold and served as a really expensive ice pack. Frozen bag of peas does the job at 1/15 the cost. Ice pack is even better. This movie was released in 2012, and that is way too recent to be wasting steaks like this. I don't care if the freezer's shorted out due to the flooding. You go upstairs and remove everything from the freezer that is not steak, and you put all these steaks in there, and here ended the lesson. Richard Parker!
Oh my God, you look just like him.
He does not. With someone's finished Rubik's Cube without explicit consent.
She's pretty.
Uncle Ben points out the attractiveness of Gwen Stacy, instead of explaining to Peter why it's super stalkery and creepy that he has multiple photos of her on his computer. As curious and technologically gifted as Peter is, I'm finding it hard to believe he has never binged his dad before, so I find it almost impossible to believe he has never come across the name and picture of Kurt Connors prior to now. Also, 10 years later, and we're still giving a ding to Bing.
Got it.
Okay, Mr. Guevara.
Peter is able to waltz into a highly secretive lab like Oscorp and grab a name tag, and no one asks him for his ID first.
Where I go, you go. That's the basic rule.
Wait, where you go, they are obligated to go by rule? Because if you stop to use the restroom, things are going to get complicated pretty quickly. The woman at the front desk had an awkward encounter with Peter, and I'm pretty sure this name would be familiar enough to her to at least look into the possibility that this screaming kid is indeed Rodrigo Guevara. Seriously, did nowhere in NYC in 2012 check driver's licenses or some form of identification?
I'm a scientist, and I'm the world's foremost authority on herpetology. That's reptiles, for those of you who don't know.
Herpetology is the study of reptiles, but it's not only the study of reptiles. It's also the study of amphibians, and Dr. Kurt Cockings would absolutely know that. Am I being picky? Yes, I am. Also, welcome to the channel. This must be your first time. Hope you try the banana bread before you leave.
I want to create a world without weakness.
Referring to disabilities as weaknesses. I love how all these scientists are like, yep, totally normal that a tour group left the room and one of its students is loitering around. Heads down, chaps. Science on. While I am skeptical that Peter could have seen this from this distance and recreated the pattern perfectly later himself, I'm going to choose to sin that the super secret, probably illegal wing of Oscorp has a single dual pattern with your finger security checkpoint. No fingerprints, no retinal scan, no physical key, just discount kindergarten Simon Says. So Oscorp is clearly mass studying the strength of spiderwebs, but no one who works here can see Spider-Man later and put 2 and 2 together? Also, willingly entering a room full of thousands of spiders. Peter lets a metric ton of spiders fall on him before he moves toward an exit.
Norman Osborn is dying, Dr. Connors. Save him. We both lose our heads.
Or, and hear me out here, just let him die. And then he can't take your heads, and now you guys are in charge. Can't tell me the board of this company has charged an executive and a researcher with saving the life of the company founder, or else you're fired. No one whips out a phone and starts recording this, thereby forever proving who the future Spider-Man is.
Going out the next stop.
Holy shit, is a long way from home in Queens, and he apparently got on the wrong facing train after his bug bite. And yep, he ran home. Peter's new abilities utterly f up this bathroom, and I'm not sure it ever comes up again. Peter uses Bing to search for information about spider bites when he knows full well he was bitten by a unique and genetically altered spider, and therefore Bing will not have any more answers for him than it has for anyone who uses Bing for any other search. Where do we go from here? No one bats an eye here. If I saw a person do this in real life, I would set myself on fire and run around screaming, "Nothing is real, and this is all a simulation!"
He's got you on his computer. I'm his probation officer.
What Martin Sheen had to tell all of Charlie's friends in high school somehow makes its way into the script.
No, I didn't get expelled. I got community service.
That's funny, because the movie is going to basically suggest his Spider-Manning is his community service, but the movie will never again return to this punish. Wait, how the f*** can a school principal order a teenager to community service? While Peter struggles to flirt, I'm just curious why this school has no hall monitors. And Peter got in trouble and went to the principal's office, but what the f*** is Gwen doing out of class right now? The skateboard jump from 20 feet up somehow does not break the board in two upon impact.
Well, others disagreed. You know, what if the device were loaded with a toxin?
Which seems like a very fair and cautious thought process. So why is the machine still even at Oscorp? Why not destroy it? The legal implications are so stark, I'm shocked you kept this thing.
Many of these wonderful creatures have so brilliantly adapted that they can regenerate entire limbs at will.
Regeneration in a lizard is an automatic process. There is no will involved. This would be like saying humans grow fingernails and hair at will.
Enter the algorithm now.
Oh, this is not a tour, it's a robbery of Peter's formula, and it's going to sort of work. But Peter signed nothing to protect his IP rights here as the inventor of the process, and I've seen The Spanish Prisoner enough times to know that the inventor largely gets the shaft.
You need to take that.
And then Peter pushes the green accept call icon instead of the red hang up icon, and yet the call hangs up. Holy f***. But also, he was supposed to pick up Aunt May tonight at 9, and somehow Dr. Connors has stayed up here working with a teenage high schooler on some advanced genetic math because he's desperate to grow a new arm, and also he doesn't know who the f*** Aunt May is. And Peter should answer this f***ing call, but also why is this doctor dude keeping a high school kid up here this late at night all alone?
You owe your aunt an apology. Big time.
I'm not sure overdoing an apology is going to come off as very sincere.
Peter, come back here, please.
I was so concerned about Peter not picking you up and leaving you alone walking in the New York City streets at night that I'm now going to leave you home alone with the front door completely useless and anyone could come in and do whatever they wanted.
You can leave a penny, you can't take a penny.
A lot of horrible things happen right after this, and Peter is being a total dick, but this guy also 100% deserves to be robbed.
Hey kids, little help?
Not my policy.
Changing this scenario from the comics and the first Raimi film is fine in theory, but the logic of the store clerk doesn't jibe with the logic of the guy who owned the wrestling joint. Does this guy really expect a high school kid to run down a thief who could be carrying a gun and who knows what else? At least in the wrestling scene, they don't know Peter is just a kid, and they just watched him manhandle a professional wrestler. They're trying to stick a square spider in a round hole, and I don't like it.
Someone call an ambulance, Uncle Ben! Uncle Ben!
This scene is a lot less sad if you imagine he's literally asking the rice company to come and save the dying person in front of him. Like Ricky Bobby scatter shooting his pleas to all the gods, including Oprah Winfrey and Tom Cruise. Like, Uncle Ben, Mrs. Fields, Chef Boyardee, Duncan Hines, please come help me. Food brands named after people.
Here's one other thing. He has a star tattooed on his left hand.
Which I'm telling you on the off chance you have recently been bitten by a radioactive spider and now possess superhuman strength and are thinking about scouring the streets every night looking for him. Also, that tattoo is on his wrist and not his hand. Police should be a little more specific if they want to be helpful. This police sketch is objectively hilarious. All we can really learn from this sketch is that the dude had long hair. This looks like a poster for They Live. This looks like Brad Pitt.
Feels better, right? Like your uncle died. I'm sorry.
Flash is definitely a dick most of the time, but this movie really does a great job at giving the character multiple layers. It also causes Peter to come off more like a dick, and for a while, he's extremely unlikable, which is not a great trait for your protagonist to have.
You like beating on girls?
This whole Peter goes out every night to try and find the man with the tattoo feels a lot more in line with Batman than Spider-Man. But what's even stranger is that once the lizard starts wreaking havoc, this storyline is dropped and never brought back up, even in the terrible sequel. So this guy is still out there, presumably. Peter eventually doesn't care to even find him anymore. I'm not sure if that makes Peter less or more of a nephew, but it's weird. I mean, that's not really saving the guy, and if he did have the tattoo, Peter was just going to let him fall to his death? Peter falls into a wrestling arena, and does every film adaptation of Spider-Man have to do the whole wrestling inspiration for the costume thing? All right, we have a shaded lamp in the background, a desk lamp in front of him that is pointed at the laptop, and a laptop, which might be providing some ambient light, but what the light source is shining bright on his left shoulder and bicep? Does he have a floodlight up in the corner above the closet door? Like, if your webs don't work right here, then you're basically wearing Hudsucker. At least Toby tested this 2 or 3 stories high and not skyscraper level. No one sees this in New York City during the day.
Oh, come on. You know better than anyone that the weight of the bob on any pendulum has no effect on swing speed.
This makes no sense. Maybe Peter found this guy and decided to wait for a cute gotcha moment in a stolen car, despite his anger boner over this guy's possible killing of Uncle Ben. Then I guess he realizes this dude is casing a valet lot, breaks into the car himself first, just so he can surprise the thief in style? The only other option is that he snuck in there back in the front of the restaurant when the key handoff was made to the valet, but someone definitely would have seen him in that case. Crotch! Listen.
Knock it off, man!
This version of Spidey also leans harder into his trolly sense of humor than the other versions have. This f***ing crazy cop shoots at Spider-Man, who's right in front of the webbed-up car thief the cop thinks is an innocent victim. He almost killed that guy.
Hey, watch out! I'm swinging here!
I was thinking I would sin the ridiculous idea that Peter would be old enough to have any knowledge of Midnight Cowboy, but he does have that damn Rear Window poster in his bedroom, and to be honest, that poster still bugs the shit out of me, so let's sin that instead.
So, 38 of New York's finest versus one guy in a unitard.
Casting Dennis Leary in a movie and having his character complain about an establishment cliche.
Look at me, Peter.
This emotional moment brought to you by Jansport.
Cross-species genetics is finally working.
Thanks to a formula from a high school kid that I convinced him to give up without a contract.
You have to start human trials.
Only a profit-minded CEO in a capitalist society would insist on going straight from a single successful rat test amongst dozens of dead rats in the same test to human trials.
I won't.
He will.
Have your office cleared out by the morning.
He only has one arm. This is an unreasonable request.
Do you like Branzino?
Who the would know how to answer this question? I'd never heard of Branzino till I saw this movie. And yes, it is mentioned again in Tom Holland's Homecoming, and that's hella weird, but my point here is that no regular Queens high school boy would have an answer for a first-world question like this. Villain only becomes a villain because they touch their shaky science on themselves cliché.
Your doorman's intimidating.
It's 20 stories.
That excuse should not work. No doorman is so intimidating that you would rather climb 20 flights of fire escape stairs. Can you really climb up the fire escape like that without other people who live in the building calling the cops?
Do you have your suit in there?
Gwen expects Peter to have worn a suit to a weeknight dinner at her house without telling him to. Has she met a high school boy before? Walking into your teenage daughter's room without knocking first.
I feel like Branzino.
Branzino. Branzino. Hand placentas.
I'm going to Holton Avenue across the river. I'm in a hurry.
Has anyone ever gotten into a cab and said, I'm headed to X location, but I'm hoping you'll take 3 hours to get me there? Dude sees that and then actually starts driving, as opposed to getting out of the car and running away as fast as possible. Peter spends dinner arguing with the police father of the girl he likes because he's super defensive about being Spider-Man, when I would think, and I was led to believe, that his interest in Gwen was substantial enough that he could see the police dad's point of view and choke down his own insecurities for an hour or two, but I guess I was wrong. And because of that awkward argument, dinner is over literally 2.5 minutes after Peter first poked at his fish.
I'm in trouble.
No matter how silly and irritating this movie can be, Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield's on-screen chemistry is magical. But also, we have no backpack, we have backpack. This Oscorp dick doesn't go flying into the windshield at this point.
Help me, my kid is trapped!
Panicking pony boy proclaims his preteen is on the precipice of peril. He saved the kid! But the kid's dad is the crane guy from later, so is this like kid shadowing? Chekhov's relative? It's not nothing, is all I'm saying. I guess Spider-Man isn't going to check the other dangling cars out. I'm not sure saving one kid and letting several other people fall to their deaths is the best PR strategy, but you do you, Spider-Man. Hey, Gwen, meet me on the bleachers during football practice after school. It's a natural environment for discussion. Signed, Peter. Also, look at that mud pie of a wrecked track. How is the track this up by rain, but the football field is fine? This is some legendary rain damage here, folks. They can't host a track meet here for months. Movie has no concept of physics if it thinks a hard-thrown football could bend a goalpost like this, but then again, movie is in love with Emma Stone, so it's likely to do some stupid things along the way.
How would a predator track A reptile.
It's insane enough that Peter would be asking the question about the lizard to the actual lizard without knowing Dr. Connors is the lizard. But considering Peter knows Dr. Connors is experimenting with cross-species genetics, and Peter has just helped him synthesize a potential serum for this to take effect, why wasn't Dr. Connors #1 on Peter's suspect list?
I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I have a new project I'm working on. I need to be alone.
But instead, what happens is Dr. Connors leaves, and Peter hangs back and snoops around and discovers that Connors is in fact the lizard. Peter doesn't even have to be sneaky about it. Connors just leaves him there. That's some of the bullshittiest bullshit ever. How did he get all his shit down here? This is a full lab in the sewer. How and why is there even enough electricity hookups down here? Why is there a huge flat lab-sized platform?
Dosage has been increased to 200 milligrams.
If at first your serum turns you into a giant lizard for 24 hours, increase the dosage! Why are all the lizards attracted to a giant human-turned lizard in the sewers? This is some Pied Piper shit. It's whack.
You stopped me once.
Did he, though? It was more like Spider-Man kicked you and then you ran away.
Peter Parker.
Between Peter being left in Connor's lab unattended and Peter leaving a camera behind with his f***ing name on it for the lizard to find, this movie relies on more insane luck and stupidity than the entire runtime of Police Academy 4 Citizens on Patrol. When Peter was initially scratched by the lizard, the hand movement was from the top of Peter's chest and then straight down, so why are these scratch marks at a diagonal angle? Correct me if I'm wrong, but they've been on one date, and that was a pretty quick one because he fought with her dad, and then there was a lizard attack both the dad and Peter had to go stop. How is this low? I refuse to believe that this motherfucker could tell he was under the Midtown Science High School by the look of the sewers.
Left here, take a right here. Yes, I should now be under that high school Peter Parker attends.
The less than stellar CGI look of the lizard really makes you miss the simplicity of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers-esque Green Goblin mask they put on Dafoe in Raimi's first Spider-Man film. I can't get service inside Wendy's, but he can take calls in the f***ing sewers.
I spent my life as a scientist trying to create a world without weakness.
Luckily for Peter, Connors has queued this video up to start playing at the exact point he starts talking about his big villain plan.
Gwen! Gwen! You mother Hubbard! Are you serious?
The original scripts had versions with him calling her London Bridge and Ring Around the Rosie, but those references were deemed too cerebral. She's a high school student intern. I was suspicious enough that her ID card would let her into the building and the lab after hours, but how and why does she have a code to evacuate the entire building?
It's headed to Oscorp, and your daughter's there right now.
Which is actually my fault, but no need to go into trivial details right now.
Hold your fire!
Not holding your fire.
Spider-Man appears to be heading towards Oscorp. He looks injured, and it's really not clear if he's gonna make it.
Lucky for Spider-Man, though, War of the Worlds 2, the next wave's C. Thomas Howell is watching this convenient news position and also happens to be the guy whose son Spider-Man saved. And he has access to a bunch of cranes in the city that can be perfectly placed to allow Spider-Man to swing his way to Oscorp. It's a Saturnalia miracle. You, that guy was literally down on ground level less than 90 seconds ago. Spider-Man is not a funeral procession. You do not need to stop traffic for Spider-Man. Both of these guys have been shot earlier tonight and are now seemingly at 100%, so I'm not sure why I'm still surprised that they both survived this impact with no injury, but I am. This is a cool shot, but what are we trying to accomplish here? He's Spider-Man. Why are we slowing this down and dramatizing it like he's going to fall to his death? Also, this is as good a time as any to point out that none of the live-action Spider-Man movies have provided anywhere near the leaping off a building thrills and chills that Into the Spider-Verse gave us with the leap of faith. He's going to freeze to death and then explode into bits of icy former lizard? That's a Demolition Man ending, which is weird because Dennis Leary was also in Demolition Man.
I got this, Peter!
He does not got this. Seems silly in 2022 to sin a too many shotgun firings without a reload cliche, but here we are. I appreciate that the fast-acting rehabilitation fog worked and Lizard is saving Peter here, but this is way too much drama about Peter maybe falling when, again, he is Spider-Man.
You're gonna make enemies. People will get hurt. Sometimes people closest to you.
Jesus Christ, man, just say protect my daughter and be done. Then you have a dozen or so more words before you die to say things like, I'm actually gay, or rapid speech high vocabulary comedy is a verbal version of prop comedy.
Leave Gwen out of it.
What does that mean, though? Leave her out of the superheroing? Because that's easy. But the movie makes it seem here in a moment like Peter interpreted that request as dump Gwen and be a dick to her. I'd take off 1,000 sins if in the midst of all these movie funeral black umbrellas, there was a hot pink one. She senses Peter is at the rainy funeral and up on the roof above her. How the f*** did she do that?
My father died.
Duh, I was there.
Everyone was there but you.
Well, he was there, and you even sensed it by looking up. But regardless, why the f did Peter interpret Mr. Stacy's instructions to mean he couldn't even publicly be seen at his funeral? She just said Flash Thompson was there. Peter being there would not raise any suspicion. She is 100% right here, and I'm kind of pissed that she ends up dating him again in the sequel.
I can't see you anymore.
What is the harder thing to believe in this scene? Peter being willing to tell this lie, or Gwen believing it? Why can't he just say, your father made me promise to break up with you to keep you from being targeted by Spider-Man's enemies, and she's going to figure it out in 10 seconds anyway. That number 36 on the door looks rather weathered and faded, even though it should have been recently painted on, since Peter broke all the glass earlier in the film when he stormed out after he and Uncle Ben fought. Neither of these ladders explain how high up this Spider-Man logo street art begins. Holy f***, that moon is going to crash into the air. Oh wait, that's just the moon in this movie? Did the movie only do partial science, or what?
Now I have guilt.
You're mad at me.
Chad, you know what? I'm not your mommy.
Your father was a very secretive man.
Fullest.
I love science.
You love science.
I'm passionate about
They
it.
snuck it.
Because you're so into science.
Going out the next stop. First we ride the Cyclone.
Do you know how easy this is for me?
I bring it! Come on, Parker! Come on!
Am I right or wrong? Yeah, I thought so.
Saigon. I'm still only in Saigon.
Hey, watch out! I'm walking here!
I'm the kind of guy who likes to sit in a greasy spoon and wonder, gee, should I have the T-bone steak or the jumbo rack of barbecue ribs with the side order of gravy fries? According to Cocteau's plan, I'm the enemy because I like to think. I like to read. I'm into freedom of speech and freedom of choice.
How do you know my name?
It's me, Jessica!
Who throws a shoe? Honestly.
This is what we call an orgy of evidence. No many orgies I had as a homicide cop. None.